絶対に負けられねえ。
Hearing the news of the passing of Toriyama Akira, I felt it only fitting to take a few minutes to explain what he meant to me through his work in his most popular manga, Dragon Ball Z. It's a comic that I was not necessarily very interested in until I made my first trip to Japan.
50% のパワーだというあいつの言葉がはったりだろうと、そうでなかろうと。
I've spoken of my homestay when I was just a high school student and I had the chance to come to Japan for a couple of weeks. And of course, during that trip, I had jet lag. And when I had jet lag, that meant that I couldn't go to sleep at night. And guess what was on when I was awake? Dragon Ball Z. My best friend from college was actually a bigger Dragon Ball Z fan than I was. And we had a running joke that most of the episode would be of them powering up and you'd hear the for a good 2 or 3 minutes before they started fighting. However, it's not Dragon Ball Z that is my favorite Toriyama Akira work. It's a different manga that really drove my interest in learning my second language. I'm forever grateful that my father is a quote-unquote geek. He is very good at math, and he tutored me at math when I was young, from my times tables to when I started seeing letters in algebra and couldn't understand what they were to me learning to enjoy math. But one of the perks of being the son of a quote-unquote geek is that his career success put his son in a position to experience things that maybe other kids, and in our case, other black boys, might not experience. And because of that experience, it will change our culture. And the magazine that changed my culture was Manga. I mentioned in previous videos that as a high schooler in my early teens, I was privileged enough to not only go to a school that taught Japanese, but I was able to win a contest to go overseas as a young teen and have a homestay. All again, perks of being the son of a quote-unquote geeky father. And the day that our teacher introduced us to Manga, it changed our everything. It was the first time that we had a chance to not just study Japanese from our textbooks, but to look at actual written Japanese comics that were translated into English. And this, for us, was a game changer. Toriyama Akira's second work, which many people in America may not be acquainted with, is a manga called Dr. Slump, which has a main character by the name of Arare. Upon first inspection, Dr. Slump looks like a wholesome manga that's fit for the whole family to enjoy together. And for the most part, the cartoon manga is just that. But you can imagine my surprise when I looked at the actual manga being translated that starts with a robot young girl that's created by a scientist named Dr. Slump. And as you can see, she starts by saying "Oppai petanko." And he says "uruse," which means be quiet. And of course she's saying, "My breasts don't stick out."
And the award for anime of the year goes to Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2!
You don't have to be an expert at manga to know that Japan makes some of the finest manga in the world. Although it may be a bit violent at times, like you'll see in Jujutsu Kaisen, or in the popular version of Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer, or it could trend to the sexually suggestive. But either way, one thing you can rest assured of when you're dealing with comics is that Japanese people have full control over their culture. Something that we, the new passport bros, if you will, can learn a thing or two from. Something that has happened in the last few years of black music, and specifically hip hop, is that it has moved further and further away from the intelligent, forward-thinking, progressive, if you will, thinking black person, and in our case, black men, and it has moved closer and closer to the street. It is progressively more void of intellectual value, and it is more derogatory and more unintelligent than any version of hip hop that existed before it. And as men who are going to sooner or later create families overseas, and that would include daughters, because some of us will have young daughters, we're going to have to find a way to buffer our children, and specifically our young girls, from this culture that simply consumes Black people. When I first heard of Sukihana's new release selling, you see what it says, part of me was in disbelief, but there was a second part of me that knew that this was just par for the course. This progressively more suggestive, straight to the point, lewd, in your face, with very basic verbals and very, very little hip hop artistic value being sent out over the airways. And in one day, it has almost 200,000 views. And not only does it have these views, but you don't see any major political Black folks condemning this. In a way, it's almost kind of celebrated, if not accepted as normal. And it's this infectious culture that is something that we as Black men that are looking to create new lives and new families in new places have to actively work against. In effect, we're going to have to create a new culture from scratch to replace this culture, because if we expose our new young kids in other places to it, it will consume them as well.
I'm Kurumi Mori for Bloomberg Quick Take. I'm in Tokyo here with Arthal Aison, the CEO and art director of DR Studio, Japan's first Black-owned anime studio.
Salute to all of my subs, and in particular, Valeri Kirmu, who suggested this particular video. I get so many interesting recommendations from all of you suggesting very interesting topics, and this one in particular is of a Black man who opened a manga studio in Japan.
So Arthal, you're an American. You grew up in Jersey.
Yeah, I grew up in Jersey, yes.
What got you started for the love of anime?
So I guess I really am just like an artist at heart. I love the different styles, both realism and everything, the use of like shadow and light, color. I think that the artists in Japan really explore all the different aspects of art in general. And you really see it in their art. It's so detailed and so well thought out, so crafted.
You can hear that this is a very bright young gentleman, and when he speaks about the aspects of art that are very unique to what people that do art understand, he is quite well versed in it. But you hear him also speak of the relief from not having to worry about things like just being a Black man in America and worrying about the police or waiting at bus stops and getting racially profiled. All things that come with making the decision to make a leap and go overseas. But what he's really doing is he's recreating a new branch of Black culture that's separate from the promoted culture that we're seeing with Sukihana and the like. What I think is the next evolution of Black culture, or should I say the new Black instead of the pro-Black, is guys that are a little geeky or a little bit different than the average machismo, if you will, going overseas and branching the Black culture into new directions, and taking bits and pieces of the African American culture, maybe it's collard greens, or it's a certain kind of dance, or even if it's positive hip hop, and integrating that into a more wholesome culture so that we can integrate the good parts of Black culture that we were handed down from our family and even the Black culture that was around us when we were younger, and we can take some of these elements of newer Black hip-hop culture and leave them where they belong. And that's away from our kids. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.